Resuming debate, the honourable member for Carleton.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Now, of course, let's start with the beginning. In the beginning, this Prime Minister created a program that already existed. That program is a program called the Canada Summer Jobs Program. A program that lets young people work for charities, small businesses, and other organizations that serve the community. And the federal government simply reimburses a share of the wage paid to that student employee. Now, suddenly, the Prime Minister was hit by a lightning bolt, that caused him to think that it was necessary to contract out that very same program that had been functioning for so many years with such great success to a group that just happened to have paid his family $500,000 in speaking fees and expenses. Now, he told us that there was no other way that this could have been done. That a bureaucrat in the employment department, the very department that has been running the successful in-house program for decades, concocted this scheme to give the money to this particular organization called We. The entire government defense, as the member for Langley will be saying as I split my time with him, is that this Prime Minister had nothing to do with any of it. This mid-level bureaucrat rammed it all down his throat. That he was hit suddenly with a surprise attack at a cabinet meeting, and he pushed back. He said, "No, hell no, I'm not giving all this money to my friends. Come back to me in a week, and I'll reconsider." That's the basis of his defense, right? There's only one problem with that. The documents. Let's start with correspondence between the We organization and the Prime Minister's own senior advisor, Ben Chin. Craig Kielburger, the founder of We, sends Ben this message about the program. He says, "Hello, Ben, thank you for your kindness in helping shape our latest program with the government. Warmly, Craig." Now, you think if Ben actually had no role, that in fact it was this mid-level employment department bureaucrat who did it all, he would write back and say, "Craig, thanks for the message, but you're being far too kind. I had nothing to do with setting up that program. It was designed by an employment department bureaucrat with no involvement from the PMO. I wish you well in all of your future endeavors." But no, he did not. He said, "Great to hear from you, Craig. Let us get our young working." In other words, not for a moment suggesting that the message he got from Craig Kielburger was wrong, but rather validating that it was, in fact, right. Now, if Mr. Chin has nothing to hide, and if he played no role in setting up this program, then surely he'll have no difficulty coming, as this motion from the honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands has proposed, and testifying under oath to explain his lack of involvement in establishing that very program. But he'd have to be careful, because he would be followed by Rick Theiss, the Prime Minister's Director of Policy and Cabinet Affairs. Now, Mr. Theiss is the man who puts things in front of the Prime Minister at Cabinet. So he would know if the Prime Minister really did push back on this $500 million grant to the group that paid off his family. And if so, he would be able to answer very specific questions before a parliamentary committee, putting the whole thing to rest. And that's exactly what we propose in this motion, that Mr. Theiss come and that he explain. who really set up this program and whether the Prime Minister really did, so quote unquote, push back on paying off this group that had done so much for the Trudeau family. But what we find instead, we look at Mr. Theis's correspondence with the Kielburgers, is that Mr. Theis actually was quite involved in the early stages. We have here, please, I'm going to quote directly from correspondence from Craig Kielburger to this senior prime ministerial advisor. Please find attached an updated version of the project plan and budget. We appreciate your assistance both on timelines for a decision and, if relevant, potentially assisting with streamlining the contribution agreement. We would appreciate a list of names with whom to discuss the youth entrepreneurship program to ensure that it's baked for Phase 2 recovery plans. In other words, the contribution agreement, which again we were told was not the purview of the Prime Minister's office, but again was being handled by a mid-level bureaucrat far away on the other side of the Ottawa River, was in fact being discussed between Mr. Kielburger and Mr. Rick Theis, top advisor to the Prime Minister. In fact, we have correspondence from Sophia Marquez, a lobbyist for the WE organization. Hi, Rick. Just wanted to let you know that I and our co-founders, Craig and Mark Kielburger, are on the line waiting for you. Thank you. Sophia, end quote. Mr. Theis responds to Ms. Marquez, sorry, joined, and then began the telephone conversation between the Kielburgers and this second top Trudeau prime ministerial advisor, Mr. Theis. And now we're getting a summary of this program. It says here, Rick Theis speaks to Craig Kielburger, Mark Kielburger, Sophia Marquez. According to Mr. Theis, the call lasted for approximately 25 minutes. So it's a substantive conversation. We Charity raised the ongoing work with ESDC, the Employment Department, on the Canada Student Service Grant. That's the $500 million grant, as outlined in the attached document, and a proposal for social entrepreneurship. Mr. Theis asked what they are proposing for the Student Service Grant would ensure diversity in placements. The Kielburgers expressed concern that this type of program would need to get off the ground soon. At no point were expenses discussed, nor any commitments, assurances, or advice given by Mr. Theis to WE on any subject other than to contact the ESDC. Well, that's Mr. Theis's claim. 25 minutes for Mr. Theis to tell them, don't ask me, ask ESDC. I have nothing to do with this. How long does it take to say, please call someone else, you have the wrong number? 25 minutes they spoke, during which time it is documented here on May 5th that the Kielburgers were in a rush to get the money flowing. And you know what happened? On May 5th, their expenses became eligible for taxpayer reimbursement. Total coincidence that this 25-minute conversation about nothing, they would have us believe that this is the Seinfeld conversation. It was a 25-minute conversation about nothing, except that the Kielburgers said, could you please hurry up? We want to get busy spending all that money you promised. And what do you know, on the very same day, those expenditures became eligible for taxpayer reimbursement. And this is a top advisor to the Prime Minister who had nothing whatsoever to do with setting up this whole affair. Now, it's incredible. These two gentlemen in the Prime Minister's office would have seen the promotional material that we circulated in the PMO. You know what was in that promotional material? The Prime Minister's mother and wife. Oh, by the way, everyone in the PMO, the boss's wife and mother get money from us. You might want to take that into account when you decide whether to give us some money. I'm sure that Mr. Theis was so nice because he knew that the boss's wife and mother were getting paid by the organization with which he was having that 25-minute Seinfeld conversation about nothing. Well, this government might think $500 million is nothing. To the working people, To the people who bagged groceries and served on the front line paying taxes throughout this pandemic, $500 million is not nothing. They don't get speaking fees from powerful organizations like we. They work hard every day for their money, and they deserve answers on what this Prime Minister did with that money. Madam Speaker, if the government has nothing to fear, if the Prime Minister has any courage, he'll support this motion and let us get to the answers. Thank you.